That's not a scoreline. That's not a transfer fee. That's the number of individual matches Arsenal players missed through injury last season. The same season Arsenal lifted the Premier League trophy for the first time in 22 years. Let that sit for a second. While the rest of English football was calling Arsenal a set-piece team, while pundits were saying City just had a bad year, while people were writing think pieces about whether Mikel Arteta could actually handle the big moments, Arsenal were quietly doing something nobody had ever done in quite this way before. They won a league title with half their squad missing. Not for 1 week, not for one bad run of fixtures, for months, across an entire season. Key players, first-choice players, irreplaceable players, gone, one after another, sometimes all at once. And they still finished with 85 points. They still kept 19 clean sheets. They still conceded just 27 goals, the best defensive record in the division. They still spent 233 days at the top of the Premier League table, longer than any previous Arsenal title-winning season in history. They still reached the Champions League final. With the handbrake on, here's what that actually looked like in real time, because the numbers are one thing, but the names make it genuinely hard to believe. Martin Odegaard, the club captain, the heartbeat of everything Arsenal do going forward, was substituted before half-time in 3 consecutive starts. A first in English top-flight history. Then he damaged his medial collateral ligament against West Ham in October, came back too soon, broke down again, and spent the rest of the campaign chasing a rhythm he never fully found. Victor Gyokeres, the striker Arsenal brought in specifically to solve their goal-scoring problem, injured his hamstring in November and lost months. Mikel Merino had surgery on a stress fracture in his foot after being hurt in January. Gabriel Jesus spent most of the year recovering from knee ligament damage. Jurrien Timber, Noni Madueke, Kai Havertz, Gabriel Magalhaes all had extended absences at different points in the season. And somehow, through all of that, Arsenal won the Premier League by 7 points. So when people say Arsenal got lucky, when they say City just had an off year, when they say the corners were a gimmick and the title doesn't really count, what they're actually saying, without realizing it, is that Arsenal's best team never even played. That's the story nobody told properly all season, because the version of Arsenal that won the title wasn't Arteta's finished product. It was a rotating emergency, held together by defensive organization, set-piece brilliance, and a collective spirit that refused to crack no matter who was missing. Their leading league scorer finished on just 14 goals. Erling Haaland scored 27 in the league alone for a City side that finished second. Arsenal won the Premier League with a 14-goal top scorer and still won it by 7 points. That's not a weakness. That's a symptom of a team that was never firing on all cylinders and still left everyone else behind. The engine room that powered this title win was, in practice, 2 men and a prayer. Declan Rice and Martin Zubimendi carried an enormous share of the minutes across a 60-game season, both visibly fatigued by the closing weeks, running on fumes while Arteta rotated around them as best he could. Merino was out for months. Odegaard was available for a fraction of the year. The alternatives Arteta had were either injured or not yet trusted at this level. Rice covered ground like almost nobody else in the division, winning the ball back through sheer physical force, plugging gaps, protecting the back four even when the press broke down. Zubimendi was the brain next to him, the player who could receive under pressure, turn out of trouble, and still find the pass that broke a defensive line before the opponent had time to reorganize. Together, they made Arsenal hard to play through centrally, but they were never meant to carry this alone for an entire campaign. That was always the one fragile point in an otherwise deeply organized structure, and by the final weeks of the season, you could see it. Which is exactly why what happened next in the transfer window tells you everything about how Arteta and Arsenal think. They didn't go out and buy a flashy name. They didn't sign a forward to fix the goal-scoring numbers. They identified the exact pressure point that nearly broke them, and they fixed it. Bruno Guimaraes, over 150 Premier League appearances, Brazil captain, a player who can both control a game and drive it forward, arrived from Newcastle for around 75 to 80 million pounds. Not a luxury, not a statement signing, a solution to a specific, almost hidden problem. With Bruno alongside Rice, Arteta now has 3 players capable of leading a midfield at the highest level. Rice won't need to play 55 games. Zubimendi won't be running on empty in April. The engine room that almost cracked under the weight of last season now has the depth to sustain it across a full campaign. Before we talk about what comes next, let's be honest about what Arsenal actually built last season, because even that is being underrated. 27 goals conceded, 19 clean sheets. The best defensive record in the Premier League. Their expected goals against was roughly 28.5, and no side in the division allowed fewer shots, fewer efforts on target, or fewer big chances created against them. Across all competitions, Arsenal kept 32 clean sheets, 6 more than any other club in Europe's top 5 leagues. And this was not a team parking the bus. Arsenal pressed from the front, winning possession back in the attacking third at one of the highest rates in the league. William Saliba and Gabriel defended aggressively. Declan Rice protected the space behind them. The fullbacks pushed high. The wingers tracked back. The entire structure moved together as one unit. What made them almost impossible to play against was the connection between the lines. The attack, midfield, and defense stayed close enough that opponents couldn't find space through the middle. Teams were pushed wide, where the threat was easier to manage. And even when the first press was beaten, Arsenal rarely panicked. The nearest player slowed the counter, Rice closed the central lane, and the defense had enough time to reset. That kind of defensive organization doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of hundreds of training sessions, a manager obsessed with structure and distances, and players who have genuinely internalized the system after years of working within it. And crucially, it survived 232 injury absences. Whoever came in, the structure held. Now, the honest part. Because a story that hides the weaknesses isn't a documentary, it's propaganda. The set-piece dependency is real. Arsenal scored 19 goals from corners last season, a new Premier League record, breaking a mark that had stood since 1992-93. 25 set-piece goals in total across the league campaign, excluding penalties, the highest in the division. That is a genuine tactical weapon, and credit to Nicholas Jover for building something that was genuinely unsolved all season. But more than a third of their league goals came from dead balls. Every defensive coach in England spent the summer studying that corner routine. If that conversion rate regresses even slightly, the open play attack has to find goals it didn't need to find last year. And with a 14-goal leading scorer, the margin for error is thinner than the table suggests. There's also the history of this specific challenge. Retaining a title is a completely different exercise from winning one. Arsenal have never done it in the Premier League era. The 63 games last season leave their mark, physically and mentally, on a squad heading into another long campaign. William Saliba picked up a back problem in preseason. Timber missed the World Cup with a groin injury. These are the kinds of concerns that don't look fatal yet, but could become serious fast. The counter-argument is real. Anyone who ignores it is selling you something. But here's what the counter-argument misses. The team that won 85 points was not Arteta's best team. It was never close to his best team. It was a rotating emergency version of it, held together by a defensive structure, a set-piece routine, and 2 midfielders running themselves into the ground, while the captain played a fraction of the games, while the striker missed months, while academy players filled in for internationals who were sitting in physio rooms. Now ask yourself what happens if Odegaard plays 35 league games instead of a broken 15. What happens if Gyokeres gets a full, clean season and pushes toward 20 goals? What happens when Bruno keeps Rice and Zubamendi fresh into April, rather than running them into the ground by February? Christos Zolis arrived from Club Brugge, 43 goals and 45 assists in 108 appearances across his last 2 seasons in Belgium, and gives Arsenal a completely different threat from the left. He's not like Martinelli. He drives inside onto his stronger foot, creates in crowded areas, and adds an open play dimension that was missing when things got difficult last season. And then there's the academy. 16-year-old Max Dahlmann is already breaking Premier League records. Miles Lewis-Skelly, not yet 20, is already in Arteta's senior plans, not warming the bench, but starting Champions League finals. Hale End isn't just producing good stories. It's producing players who already speak Arteta's football language from the day they step up. This is a squad that won the league with the handbrake on, added Bruno to fix the one thing that nearly broke them, added Zolis to fix the open play goal problem. Kept the manager, the sporting director, the set-piece coach, the captain, the spine, and the system entirely intact, while every rival is absorbing change. City are starting their first season without Guardiola since 2016. Liverpool sacked a title-winning manager and lost Salah for free. Chelsea are on to another new coach. United are still assembling. Arsenal kept everything, and then improved the one position where they were genuinely stretched. In a league where every rival is absorbing disruption, the champions are absorbing almost none. Nobody is pricing that in. The question the rest of the Premier League should be asking right now isn't whether Arsenal can go back-to-back. The question is, if they couldn't stop the emergency version, what do they do when the real one finally shows up? The handbrake is off. The best Arsenal team hasn't played yet, and that should terrify everyone.